In the years that followed, Howie and Draxia faced the challenges that came with their positions. Political crises, resource disputes, the occasional interplanetary incident, but they faced them together. Their different perspectives created solutions neither would have found alone. A historian would later write, "The Human-Draconian alliance was no accident. It began not with treaties or trade agreements, but with a chance meeting in a space diner and the courage of two individuals to see beyond their circumstances to the possibility of something extraordinary." On their 20th wedding anniversary, Howie surprised Draxia with a small private shuttle trip to the rings of Saturn, where they had once talked about going during their academy days. "You remembered," Draxia said as they floated in the observation bubble, surrounded by the glittering ice particles of the rings. "I remember everything about us," Howie said. "The good, the bad, the impossible, the real. That's what makes it work, isn't it? Seeing all of it and choosing each other anyway." Draxia nodded, her wings spreading slightly in contentment. "When I became Empress, everyone told me I needed to marry for strategic advantage. That love was a luxury I couldn't afford. And yet, here we are," Howie said. "Here we are," she agreed. "And it turns out the best strategic advantage is having someone who tells you the truth, who sees your blind spots, who makes you better than you could be alone." "That sounds suspiciously like love to me," Howie said with a smile. "Perhaps that's what they should teach at the Academy," Draxia mused. "That the most powerful force in the universe isn't gravity or nuclear fusion. It's finding someone who sees you clearly and loves you anyway." As they drifted among Saturn's rings, two people from different worlds who had built a life together, they were proof that sometimes the most unlikely orbits create the most beautiful celestial dance. Back on Mars, in the quarters they shared, there was a framed photograph of a tired mechanic and a draconian empress sitting in a booth at a space diner with a small human girl between them, all three creating constellations with their hands, writing their own story among the stars. If this story resonated with you, please remember, sometimes the best adventures don't require warp drives or laser battles. Sometimes they simply require the courage to recognize an old friend in a new place and the wisdom to build something that honors both where you've been and where you're going together. The artificial atmosphere recyclers hummed steadily against the windows of the Stardust Diner as Howie Tetsugo wiped down the engine parts spread across his usual booth. His daughter Stella played quietly with her holographic star projector at their corner spot near the viewport. At 42, Howie had grown accustomed to this routine, picking Stella up from the colony's educational pod, bringing her to the diner where he took repair jobs during the evening shift, making sure she had her projector and nutrient packs while he finished his hours. It wasn't the life he'd imagined at 25 when the solar system had seemed full of possibility, but it was a good life built from the wreckage of harder times, and he was proud of what he had survived to get here. The airlock chimed, bringing with it a gust of recycled air and a tall draconian female shaking stardust from her silver-streaked platinum hair. She wore an elegant black bodysuit with subtle armor plating, and something about the way she moved made Howie's breath catch in his throat. He knew her. Even after 15 years, he knew her. Draxia. The name escaped before he could stop it. The draconian turned, her iridescent scales catching the light as her amber eyes widened with the same recognition. Howard Tetsugo. They stood staring at each other across the diner, the years collapsing between them like a temporal anomaly. Draxia Valthorn had been his first love, his Earth Academy sweetheart, the girl he'd planned to explore the stars with before life had launched them into completely different orbits. "Daddy, who's that?" Stella asked, looking up from her star projector. The question brought Howie back to the present. "An old friend, Starshine," he said softly. "Draxia. This is my daughter, Stella." Draxia approached their table, her regal composure giving way to genuine warmth. The small wings on her back folded gracefully as she bent down. "Hello, Stella. What are you creating?" "A map of the Aldrin system with a space unicorn," Stella replied, holding up her glowing projection proudly. "That's beautiful," Draxia said, her voice like smooth velvet. "I love how you've positioned the unicorn in the asteroid belt." Howie gestured to a chair. "Would you like to sit? I'm actually working, but I've just got to finish tuning this gravity modulator. I'm done in about 20 minutes. I'd like that, Draxia said, settling into the booth. Howie brought her a cup of Martian tea before returning to his repair work, hyper-aware of her presence in the diner. When his job was done, Howie joined Draxia and Stella at the table. Up close, he could see that Draxia had changed in the ways people do over 15 years. There were fine lines around her eyes, an authority in her bearing that hadn't been there when they were young, and her scales had deepened to a richer emerald hue with age. "So, Draxia," Howie said, "tell me about your life. How did you end up here on Station Epsilon?" Howie took a breath. This was always the hard part, the summary of years that couldn't quite capture the reality of living them. "After we broke up, I went to the Mars Engineering Academy like we planned. Met someone, got married too young. Stella came along when I was 35. The marriage didn't last. I've had custody of Stella for 2 years now. I work here as the station's mechanic and do freelance spacecraft repairs on the side." "I'm sorry about your marriage," Draxia said, her clawed hand resting on the table. "Don't be. We were better parents apart than together. Stella's happy, which is what matters." He paused. "What about you? Last I heard, you'd gotten that diplomatic posting on Jupiter's moons." Draxia smiled, but there was something wistful in it. "I did. Worked my way up in the Martian diplomatic corps. I'm the Empress of Mars now." Howie nearly choked on his coffee. "Empress of the entire planet?" "Well, technically Empress of the United Territories of Mars, but yes. I oversee the planet and our colonies on Phobos and Deimos." "That's incredible, Drax," he said, using the old nickname that had slipped out before he could stop himself. "You always said you'd rule a world someday." "I did, and I do." She looked out at the stars through the viewport. "It's everything I worked for." She paused. "It's also lonely. I'm 42 years old and I've built an empire but forgotten to build a life." Howie understood that feeling more than she probably realized. "I know what you mean. Different circumstances, but I get it. Success looks different than we imagined, doesn't it?" "Do you regret it?" Draxia asked, her amber eyes studying him carefully. "The way things turned out?" Howie was silent for a moment. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then Stella laughs at something silly, or programs a new constellation for her projector, or tells me about her day. And I remember that some flight plans lead exactly where you need to be, even if it wasn't the destination you plotted." They talked for over an hour, catching up on 15 years in the way old friends do, filling in the gaps and finding the threads of who they used to be still woven into who they'd become. Stella created holographic star systems and occasionally interjected with observations about space unicorns or requests for more nutrient packs. When Draxia finally stood to leave, she hesitated. "Howard, would you want to get dinner sometime? Actually get dinner, not just happen to be in the same diner." "I'd like that," he said, then added, "though I should be honest, my schedule is complicated. I have Stella most of the time and I work 2 jobs. Dating hasn't been a priority because, well, I don't have much to offer right now." Draxia looked at him directly. "I'm not asking because I think you need rescuing or because I'm looking for a project. I'm asking because talking to you for an hour was the most genuine conversation I've had in months. And because I'd like to know the person you've become, not just remember who you were." They exchanged comm codes, and Draxia bent down to Stella's level. "It was very nice to meet you, Stella. You're an excellent astrographer." "Thank you," Stella replied. "Are you going to be my daddy's friend?" "I hope so, if that's okay with you." "Okay. But you have to like space unicorns and nebula clouds." "I think I can manage that," Draxia said, her wings fluttering slightly, a sign of amusement that Howie remembered from their academy days. Over the following weeks, Howie and Draxia built a friendship that was new rather than a continuation of what they'd had before. They met for dinner when Howie's schedule allowed, sometimes with Stella, sometimes without. They sent each other holographic messages about mundane things, articles they'd read, frustrations with work, Stella's latest star projections. Draxia learned about Howie's life in detail. The challenge of single parenthood, the exhaustion of working multiple jobs, the constant calculation of whether he could afford new gravity boots for Stella or if he should wait another month. She learned that he was resourceful, devoted, and had acquired strength that came from surviving difficult things. Howie learned that Draxia's success had come with sacrifices, relationships that couldn't handle her ambition, friendships that had faded as she'd climbed the political ladder, a persistent feeling that she'd achieved everything she'd set out to do, but somewhere along the way had forgotten to ask if those achievements made her happy. "I have everything I thought I wanted," Draxia told him one afternoon at the station's observation deck while Stella played in the zero-gravity bubble. "A successful empire, resources beyond measure, respect across the solar system. But I eat dinner alone every night. I work through rest cycles because I have nothing else to do. I can't remember the last time someone asked how my day was and actually cared about the answer." "Success is different for everyone," Howie said, watching as Stella did somersaults in the bubble. "For me right now, success is Stella being happy and healthy. Everything else is just logistics." "Don't you want more?" Draxia asked, her tail twitching slightly. "Don't you have dreams beyond just getting by?" "Of course," he said, "but dreams are flexible. I used to dream about being a famous spacecraft engineer, having my designs used throughout the system, making a name for myself. Now I dream about having health coverage that includes dental implants, about saving enough to take Stella to the lunar park, about maybe someday having a relationship with someone who understands that my daughter comes first, but who I can build something with anyway." Draxia was quiet for a moment. "That sounds like a good dream." As their friendship deepened, they both felt the pull of something more. But they were also cautious, both having learned that wanting something wasn't enough to make it work. 3 months into their renewed friendship, Draxia made a decision. They were at the diner again, Stella at her projection table, the stars outside the viewport shining like the day they'd reconnected. "Howard, I need to be honest with you about something," Draxia said. "I have feelings for you, real feelings. And I know that's complicated because we're in very different places in life. I'm the Empress of Mars with resources and responsibilities. You're a single father working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. And I don't want you to think I'm approaching this from a place of wanting to fix your life or rescue you." Howie felt his heart race. "What are you approaching this from, then?" "From wanting to be part of your life. From admiring the father you are and the person you've become. From thinking about you when I should be thinking about terraforming progress. From wanting to send you messages about everything and nothing. From caring about Stella and wanting to be someone she can count on." Howie looked at her, at the way the diner's lights reflected off her scales. "Draxia, I can't offer you the kind of life you're used to. I can't take you to diplomatic functions or go on interplanetary trips. My quarters are small. My shuttle is old. My ex-wife drama is ongoing. And Stella will always come first." "I know," she said, "and I'm not asking you to offer me a lifestyle. I'm asking if there's room in your life for someone who wants to be part of it, who wants holoid nights in your quarters and zero-G trips with Stella and whatever life actually looks like for you. Not some fantasy version." "What about the difference in our circumstances?" Howie asked. "That doesn't bother you?" "Honestly, I command more resources than I know what to do with. Resources stopped mattering to me a long time ago. What matters is finding people who see me as Draxia, not as the Empress or the Draconian or a potential political alliance." She reached across the table. "You see me, Howard. You always have." Howie took her hand, careful of her delicate claws. "I have feelings for you, too. I've been trying not to because it seemed impossible. But yes, I think about you constantly. I want to call you when something funny happens. I love that Stella lights up when she knows you're coming over. I love that you bring her star charts and that you remember which constellation is her favorite. So yes, can we try this? Carefully, slowly, with Stella's needs first." "Yes," Howie said. "But Draxia, I need you to understand something. I can't afford to fail Stella. She's already been through her parents' divorce. If we do this and it doesn't work out, it affects her too. So we have to be sure, or as sure as anyone can be." "I understand," Draxia said, her wings folding against her back in a gesture of sincerity. "We'll take it slow. We'll be intentional. And if either of us has doubts, we talk about them." They dated for a year before Draxia met Howie's parents on Earth, before they talked about a future that included both of them. They were careful and deliberate, building something solid rather than rushing into something that might crumble. Draxia didn't try to solve Howie's financial problems with her vast resources. Instead, she helped him build his repair business, making connections, reviewing his designs, teaching him how to price his work appropriately. Howie started earning enough that he could cut back his station hours and spend more time with Stella. Howie didn't treat Draxia like a resource pool or expect her to fund their relationship. He insisted on paying his share, on contributing, on maintaining his independence, even when it would have been easier to let her cover everything. They built something based on mutual respect and genuine partnership, where her political acumen and his technical skills complemented each other, where her resources and his resilience created something neither could have built alone. 2 years after their reunion, Draxia proposed, not with a grand imperial gesture, but in the diner where they'd found each other again, with Stella there to witness it. "I want to marry you," Draxia said simply. "I want to be Stella's stepmother. I want us to be a family. Not because I'm rescuing you or because you need me, but because we're better together than apart." Howie looked at his daughter, who was bouncing with excitement, clearly in on the plan. Then at Draxia, who was looking at him with hope and certainty. "Yes," he said, "but I have a condition." "What's that?" "I want to contribute equally to our life together. Not in resources because that's never going to be equal, but in partnership, in decision-making, in building our future. I won't be a consort or an appendage to your imperial life. I want to be your husband, your equal partner. I wouldn't want it any other way," Draxia said, her scales shimmering with emotion. "Howard Tetsugo, I fell in love with you at the academy because you treated me like a person, not a princess. That hasn't changed." They married 6 months later in a ceremony that reflected both their values. Draxia's elegant Martian traditions and Howie's practical Earth customs combined into something uniquely theirs. Stella was the ring bearer and took her role very seriously, presenting the rings on a holographic cushion she had designed herself. The transition wasn't without challenges. The Martian court whispered about their empress marrying a human mechanic. The press on Earth speculated about Howie's motives, but they faced it together with honesty and humor. "Did you see the headline today?" Howie asked one morning as they had breakfast in their quarters on Mars. "Station Grease Monkey Snags Dragon Lady. I'm thinking of having it framed." Draxia snorted, a very un-Empress-like sound. "I prefer yesterday's. Empress trades crown for wrench. At least they acknowledged your skills." Stella, now 8, looked up from her nutrient bowl. "My teacher says some of the other kids' parents are saying mean things about our family. She told them that diversity makes the solar system stronger." Howie and Draxia exchanged a look. "Your teacher is right," Draxia said. "And do you know what the best response is?" "What?" Stella asked. "Living well and being kind," Draxia smiled. "Success isn't just what you achieve. It's who you become while achieving it." Living on Mars required adjustments for Howie and Stella. The gravity was lighter, the days longer, the landscape more rugged. But they adapted, finding joy in the red planet's stark beauty and the community they built there. Howie established a workshop where he could continue his repair business while also serving as a consultant for the Martian fleet. His practical knowledge and innovative solutions earned him respect that had nothing to do with his marriage to the Empress. Stella thrived in her new school. Her fascination with holographic projections evolved into a talent for three-dimensional design. She made friends among both human and draconian children, bridging cultural gaps with her natural curiosity and warmth. Draxia found a new balance between her imperial duties and family life. She made time for dinner with Howie and Stella most nights, helped with homework, and scheduled regular adventure days where they would explore Mars together. "You've changed our world," she told Howie one evening as they watched the twin moons of Mars rise from the palace balcony. "Not just mine, but the whole planet. Your practical approach has influenced our terraforming projects, our educational system, even our diplomatic relations." "I just fix things," Howie said with a shrug. "It's what I've always done." "Exactly. You see what's broken and you make it work, whether it's a gravity modulator or a trade agreement or a family. That's your gift." Years later, when people asked how they'd made their relationship work despite coming from such different worlds, Draxia would say, "We didn't try to erase our differences or pretend they didn't matter. We acknowledged them and built something that honored both our strengths." Howie would add, "She didn't rescue me and I didn't ground her. We met each other where we were and built something new together." And Stella, when she was older and designing habitats for the Jupiter colonies, would tell the story of how her dad and Draxia had found each other again in a space diner orbiting the edge of nowhere. Sometimes, she would say, the best love stories are the ones where people find each other twice, once when they're young and once when they're wise enough to do it right. The day Stella graduated from the Martian Academy of Design, Howie and Draxia sat in the front row, watching with pride as she presented her thesis, an integrated habitat system that combined human practicality with draconian aesthetics. "She's amazing," Draxia whispered, her clawed hand squeezing Howie's. "She gets it from you," Howie replied. "From both of us," Draxia corrected. "The best parts of two worlds." That night, they celebrated with dinner at the original Stardust Diner, which Howie had purchased years before when the station was upgraded. He'd kept it as a reminder of their beginning, occasionally taking repair jobs there for old time's sake. "To Stella," Draxia raised her glass. "And to finding each other again," Howie added with a grin. "And to space unicorns." "And to space unicorns," Draxia agreed, her scales catching the light as she laughed. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, witnesses to a love story that had crossed worlds, bridged cultures, and proven that sometimes the best navigation systems aren't the ones that keep you on course, but the ones that help you find your way home when you've drifted too far from what matters.